Hello and welcome to Leave the Feed 30 Days of Disconnect. Today is day one, do it together, and no better guest than a master creator, the co-creator of Leave the Feed and CEO of Reach, Dylan Huey. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Woo!
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So day one is all about doing it together and the power of community. And you're a guy that like lives and breathes community. So I thought for your introduction, it would be awesome to hear about how digital communities have shaped your growth as a creator and also had like a really positive impact on your mental health.
Yeah, well, I think it all stems down to my start as a content creator when I was 14. When I was 14, I was getting bullied in middle school, and I built my following on a lip syncing platform called Musically, where I live streamed for 5 hours a day, every single day for 3 years straight. I did anything from having fans teach me French for an hour, and I went live with fans, to me reading Shakespeare for freshmen high school English class homework, right? So I quickly learned the importance of digital community, wherein I wasn't able to find community in real life, in person, in school. I turned to social media. So that's been so vital for my upbringing as a content creator. And I think community's really been at core of everything I've done, beyond being a content creator and building a community where people are able to be authentic themselves and to know that there's others who relate to them. I built a company called Reach, which became a national organization, the epitome of a community in real life for people who are passionate about social media, which is a traditionally self-isolating industry, to be able to have that group thing, to be able to come together, learn from each other, collaborate with each other, and really grow. So I think communities really shaped my entire ecosystem. I was talking about mental health during a time where everyone else was making small little lip sync videos on their phone, and I also made some small little lip syncing videos as well. But I think that that aspect really shaped a unique narrative into social media, which was that it's okay to talk about authentic, vulnerable topics, and that's something that I did in a sea of lip syncing videos.
Going back to when you were in your infancy and you were going through struggles in high school and you were looking for support or help or just a way to express yourself, what was it about the digital world that you found it easier to express authenticity and to find that community than in the physical world?
I think that there's just more people online transparently than in
Right.
person, right? You're only surrounded in high school with the people that are at your school, right? And if you're getting bullied in your high school, then there's no other path forward. But I think social media allows you to find those interest groups where there are people passionate, equally passionate about the same things that you're passionate about, right? You can really find your niche. And as someone who is super introverted, it's so much easier to find that community online where there's so many people from around the world, where you can have that global communication, community, and connection that you really can't be able to get in person. And I think that, a lot of people do prey on the negativity of social media, and how that it causes things like cyberbullying and harassment. But I think that there's a lot more good through social media than there is negative. And I think that being able to understand that there are so many different communities and connection points and opportunities on social media, because everybody is on social media now, to find the people who you can relate to. That's so vital to, a sustainable life, knowing that there are other people who are in the same place as you, who are the same age as you, who are equally as passionate about the things that you might get bullied about, or equally as passionate about, the things that other people don't like. There's at least a few people online who have that same passion and calling as you.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful to be able to share a voice, express a feeling, and it be met with open ears, open arms, open networks,
Yeah,
right? As opposed to the typical isolation that comes from just wallowing in your own fears and your own worries and your own demise, right? To be able to open those
exactly.
networks. And everything that you're doing with Reach, you know, as you started to build this community, when I first met you, Reach was in just a handful of colleges. Talk about like how it's grown and what you're doing to nurture creators and make sure that they actually have a safe and prosperous environment to create in.
When I took it over at our USC chapter, it was just a small student organization with 40 members passionate about social media and content creation during the COVID era, wherein we had guest speakers every single week. And when I became president of the USC chapter, I took a dive into what pre-COVID reach looked like. And something that stuck out to me was the ability for creators to be able to collaborate with each other. That's something that I understood because when I was growing on Musically, I was live streaming with other creators every single day. I wanted to build that aspect of community, and that was something that was super important for me. So to be able to see the juxtaposition between COVID, where we only had guest speakers every single week and nobody was very engaged and interested, to 2019, 2018 reach, where we had amazing, incredible creators like Alan Chicken Chow, who's now the most watched YouTube Shorts creator in the world, being able to collaborate with other content creators and build the scene, the plot, the play, where they have a playground to be able to make content. And that's something that I saw was super, super, super beneficial, to the ability to find creators to come together and collaborate. So to date, we've expanded reach to now 100 universities. It's only been a steady 3 years, and we have 5,000 college students, 500 million followers amongst students, 1,000 alums, 800 million followers amongst our alums. And at our core, we still are a community to this day. But we grew out even further. We grew out into a few for-profit sides as well. They all have one single tie-in, which is being the non-corporate corporate, in a sense. First and foremost, we have a marketing agency, being able to help brands and entrepreneurs be able to tap into these creators. And I think we're really good at being translators between brands and creators, right? So we help a bunch of brands with influencer marketing, with college marketing, with social media marketing. We know the playbook. We know Gen Z because for me, I am Gen Z, so it's a great playbook. I'm figuring out how to sell it to myself, but I'm also figuring out how to really get these companies to speak their mission and speak their mind. Second thing we have is the talent management group. We represent over 100 creators with 5 million followers. For me, there's a few reasons why we started a talent management group. One is the obvious. A lot of my friends growing up who are also content creators were like, oh my God, well, Reach is doing so well. You guys are getting so many brand deals. How can we tap in and how can you help us? Second thing is that we want to make sure that creators don't get taken advantage of. I see a lot of documentaries out there with the horrors of being a teen influencer, being a young influencer. And those are things, especially because the influencer space is the Wild West, that we want to be able to protect. We want to be able to protect creators and make sure that they are taken care of, but also know their worth. Because I think that that's the thing that a lot of creators don't know is what their value is to brands. Beyond that, we have a ventures division where we have equity in a lot of companies that want to grow and want to raise funding, and we help them kind of incubate them and connect them to the right people based on my network. And then we have a film and TV division where we are helping executive produce a few feature films and short films. So the lay of the land has grown a lot more. We have 5 different divisions: our national organization, our marketing agency, talent management group, venture, and studios. But I think this all-encompassing ecosystem is truly at the end of the day what we've been able to build.
Incredible. Yeah. And it brings me back to a quote that I love that you had in that influencer. And it said, first and foremost, we're a community, not a corporation. And to hold that near and dear to your heart, whether it's nurturing creators, protecting them, providing them with the tools and resources to grow, to get brand deals, to help them understand what it's like to be in the business of being creator and not just in the creation mode, right? And how to monetize it and
Yeah,
make a career out of this.
and I think that there's only so many creators right now who are thinking like a business person, right? And I think that there's a two-pronged approach when you're a creator. And I like to think of a creator more as a media company or a startup, right? When you're a startup, it's just you're a solopreneur, you're working, you're grinding, And then you're figuring out how to bring in your first employees, whether it be an editor, videographer, manager, right? Who are the independent contractors that you bring on your team? How do you form an LLC? How do you figure out your taxes? And then you scale and grow. But those are things that creators don't really understand. I get a lot of creators messaging me a week after tax week, and they're like, "Hey, I think did my taxes wrong." Right? And I'm like, "Well, what can I do? You're a little too late. You should have messaged me 2 weeks before." But that's the honest truth is that creators are really passionate about creating. They don't really know the business side of things. And for entrepreneurs, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are really good at understanding products and understanding how to build things, but they also don't know the business world, right? So it's, how do we get, these young individuals who have so much opportunity to really know how to set themselves up for success?
Right. Now there's the business side, then there's the mental health side. And as you've grown in this industry, you mentioned cyberbullying, we talk about protecting creators. What are some of the global challenges facing both creators and fans right now in relation to mental health?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things. One, I think in general, cancel culture is terrible, and I think
Yeah.
that creators get canceled left and right. Obviously, some creators get canceled for the right reasons, but I think that, it's a sticky road because, every single person is making those mistakes. The only thing that's different is that these creators are on a battlefield where there's millions of people watching them, right? But the honest truth is, we all do make mistakes, and I'm sure every single person out there, if you try to find dirt on them, no one's Jesus. Nobody has a perfect a perfect track record. So I think that's the first and foremost thing is that you know cancel culture is so terrible because it just demoralizes creators who are super passionate about wanting to make content. But then it also right now puts them into, this hole of fear where they
Yeah.
are scared to be their true self because what if their true self is going to get them canceled, right? For their political beliefs or for their ideologies or, for how they express themselves, right? There's a fear of expression. The second thing that I think is a detriment to creator lifespan is just burnout. I think that burnout's so big in the creator space. Every creator has a lifespan. The lifespan's typically like 3 to 4 years, and I think that there's a lot of creators who are constantly posting and constantly making content because they want to deliver to their audience that love them, and obviously it's a revenue stream for them. But sometimes they lose that spark of momentum, right? I think that social media is very unique because it's not a 9 to 5. It's a 24/7. You're working on Saturdays, Sundays, you're making content at evening, you're replying to fans at midnight, right? So it's a whole different thing rather than working corporate America where you have to figure out how to balance yourself. And I think creators don't really understand that balance and that importance of one, I think, this is solved by finding a community, but then two, actually doing what you're passionate about. A lot of creators start making content and there's 700 videos in, and they're like, I never really loved cooking in the first place, but all I'm making is cooking content because I felt like that was a lucrative platform and niche. The honest truth is that you should, from day one, make content that you love because if you love it, then someone else will love it.
Right. Now, going back to burnout and being on 24/7, thinking about day one, doing it together, leave the feed. You have a passion for digital online communities. Reach is epic,
Mhm.
it's growing, and yet you're an advocate for leave the feed. There's
Mhm.
a group of creators on this podcast and then leave the feed, disconnect to reconnect that are behind this movement. Why is leave the feed and disconnection important to the creator community?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because when James first reached out to me, he was like, "Yeah, I have this leave the feed thing and leave the feed product that I'm working on. I would love to get you involved." And I was like, "Yeah, but did you watch my TED Talk?" I said that I love social media. I think social media is great, and he explained to me that leave the feed meant more than just, "Hey." stop using social media, turn off your phone. And for me, I think that that's the importance, is that, that leave the feed isn't completely get rid of TikTok, get rid of Instagram, don't post content. But I think it's a remembrance of the importance of relationships. I think that truly it's, getting to know yourself and getting to know the people who are around you, both your online community and your in real life community, right? And I think that there's a deeper level, and I think that social media, a lot of times we play on a surface level playing field where, who do you really know? Like, how close are you with the people that you're going on TikTok with and commenting on their TikTok section, right? You really don't know them. You might see their content, you might know of them, but you don't know what they're going through. You don't know who they are, behind the screen. And I think that that's a whole different person, is who that person is behind the scenes. And I think that's what Lead the Feed for me really emphasizes, is the fact, both on the fan and the creator level, that we really want to get to know individuals rather than characters that are portrayed on social media, especially where there is a sea of people that you might talk to once a month, or you might comment on their posts and they'll comment back, right? Or vice versa, right? So for me, that's what Lead the Feed has always resonated for me, is that importance of really getting to know the people who are around you, who are surrounding you, who are being your cheerleaders, both on the online space and the in real life space.
It's got to be a big challenge because, like, 4 or 5 years ago, blended realities were sort of just becoming a thing. Like there was sort of the online space and the offline space. Now, with the way technology has moved forward, the lines are really blurred from everything that we do. We sit down, we order food, we scan a QR code,
Mhm.
like we're connected all the time. So, how do you find that time? Like, how do you find those moments as a creator and a CEO to sort of like unplug, take a break, and like what works best for you?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things, right? And I think that there's a few different levels, right? I can go with the cliche of going outside and going to the gym and not being on your phone, right? But I feel like everyone's gonna say that same cliche. I do love playing tennis, and I've played tennis 3 times a week. That's my time to touch grass. But I think, to go on to your question, I think it's really getting to know my friends without having screens attached, and also talking about work. Obviously, being a creator and running Reach, my community, my peers, my friends are also content creators. And I think the reason why I've been super successful is that when I go out to dinner with my creator friends, when I go hang out with my creator friends, the last thing I want to talk about is content creation and social media work related stuff. Right. I think the better thing is getting to know them and who they are, what they enjoy, what they have fun doing things that traditionally you wouldn't do on a screen, right? Going to amusement parks, going to the beach, etc. I think that those have been really, key points for me and my career, because people understand that I'm not focused on, oh, what's your next video that you're going to post that might go viral. I don't really care to hear those ideas, and those are great, and there's a time and place. But I think, when you're in person with these creators, for me, and I don't know how other people are because I don't ask them. I really try to narrate the conversation and direct the conversation. I want to make it about you and who you are, and get to know you rather than the character that you portray on the screen. That's why for me, I don't like cancel culture, because I think some of the creators who, are getting canceled left and right, I think that they are great people and they are down to earth. And, for me, they're also people like me. So I think that that's been a really big, important piece, is getting to understand and know the people behind their mask that they have.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it really stuck out to me getting to know yourself, getting out there in the real world, the real environment, whatever your passion is, like sort of getting your hands, you said, to like touch the grass, or like to feel the
Mhm.
earth, to smell the air, to like
Yep.
remember that there is a life behind the screen. And far too often, whether it's a creator in pursuit of creation or whether it's a fan in the pursuit of scrolling and capturing the next piece of content that inspires them or they want to share. Sometimes we all need to pick our head up and say like, oh my gosh, like wait, there's a world around me.
I think I'm unique in the fact that I don't do market research on other creators' content, right? I don't spend time consuming TikTok videos of my fellow creator peers. And I think that that's more or less unique because, I want to create content that is revolutionary and unique and individual to myself. I don't necessarily need to be the 1,000th Mr. Beast. I don't need to be the 1,000th Kai Cenat who's doing their next subathon, right? For me, I'm happy to make my own unique content because I know that the content that I love to make is content that other people would love to consume just because I think that authenticity, excitement, joy, and happiness is reflective from a screen, right? So it saves me time from having to scroll through trends because I just want to make my own trends.
I mean, it inspires me. I'm a content creator making this podcast right now. And one of the reasons that I fell in love with having you as a partner on this was
Yeah.
your TED Talk, social media saved my life. And I was like, this is the type of guy
Yeah.
I need here, because
Yeah.
it is
You want to know?
powerful.
You want to know something funny? I've actually
Yeah.
never watched a podcast or listened to a podcast in my life. So, but I've been on like 100 podcasts. I've never listened to it because and when I do these podcasts, I also don't look at the questions. James, you sent me the questions beforehand. I didn't even look at it. I responded to you. I said the questions look great, but I didn't read it. For me, it's all about authenticity, and I think that the most true words come out when you're least prepared, right? And for me, I don't need to have PR training behind me to know that the words that I'm saying are words that are true to myself, and I want to live and die with the words that I say.
So, in the spirit of living and dying by the words that you say, there's people right now that are just starting to take on this 30-day challenge, or they're just looking for some sparks of inspiration. How do I be more conscious of my social media consumption? Some of them are
Mhm.
creators, some of them are fans. What is your hope for anyone that's taking this challenge and is going through this 30 days?
Yeah. It's funny because I don't necessarily think that my hope is that they completely get rid of their phone. And I think that for some people, that is their intent that they're coming in with is that they decrease their screen time significantly. But I think that my hope is that they understand the world around them a little bit better, right? They understand themselves, they understand their friends, they understand their family, and they can think in a multilateral approach, right? They can start to have a little more empathy and to hear other sides of conversations in which maybe beforehand they might have only thought that their side was the correct side. I think that that aspect of empathy, vulnerability, and clear communication is something that I hope that they get from this book. I think that truly, though, at the end of the day, these individuals who are starting their own 30-day challenge should set goals for themselves. What do you personally hope to get out of it? Because that's such a unique journey and it's such a unique thing, right? I can't tell you, to decrease your screen time by 40% by participating in this book, right? The things that I can tell you is to get to hear your peers a little bit closer, get to understand your friends. If you have a disagreement with a friend or a loved one, get to know where their side is, because I've been using this phrase recently, but it's I believe that he believes or she believes that he/she is right? So anytime I'm in a disagreement, I've been using this with my lawyer recently a lot. I'll be like, well, I believe that he believes he's right, and I believe that she believes she is right, but I also think that I'm right. Right. So there's always some middle ground because everybody thinks that there's right. And there's every side to different stories. And I think Lead the Feed is going to allow people to really get into their relationships and personal life a little bit more deeper, to start to understand those aspects of life that they might have not thought about before.
I think you're exactly right. And, you don't have to go through this challenge and lock your phone away. You don't have to not check social media. And the most important thing is that you find those areas that speak to you. And, just look to find balance, look to explore, and look to have fun with it. I mean, this is a chance to really learn and grow and evolve.
I think that there's two things that I want people to walk home with. One, or to do. One is to reconnect to a long lost passion of theirs. So if they loved, playing guitar when they're younger, but just fell out of love, try to pick that back up. And second, call someone that you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe you guys lost that friendship, or maybe you guys just grew distant, and have that conversation, because at the end of the day, we're not strangers. We're all one small world, and the world's too small for anger, hate, or grudges to be had.
Man, hallelujah. Wise words. I'm going to probably leave it at that. Any other things, any other knowledge drops you want to put down, or should we leave it at that?
That's a good question. Well, that's the call to action on my side. I think, at the end of the day, I think that the lead the feed story that we're trying to tell, with the book is something that, isn't a one-time thing. And I know that we have pages where you can write on the book, but it might be something that might be beneficial to read seasonally, or, every single year. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the book. I don't usually like reading books multiple times, but I think Leave the Feed really brings, a unicentral message that no matter where you are staged in your life, there's something that you can get back. There's something that you can to take home. And no matter if you're reading it for the first time or the fifth time, there's a different nugget of inspiration, because you're going to interpret it differently. It's kind of like a fortune teller. When
Yeah.
you go to a fortune teller, they say all these like vague things, and it's for you to interpret, because it's your time to understand you more personally. That's the same thing here. It's a little less vague than a fortune teller. We're not a fortune teller who's trying to charge you $100 just to be able to predict your future. We're not predicting your future, right? It's for you to predict your own future. I think that that's the biggest difference, is we are creating that narrative and that mission, and those challenges for you to be able to better your own future and to better your own life. And you know taking multiple times to get there is an act of self-development. It's not a sign of weakness. And I think being able to read the book multiple times will allow you to really hone in on your skills that you really want to develop. Maybe it's, one year it's really focusing on actually disconnecting from your phone a little bit more. And then maybe, next to the following year, you want to, get back, with the relationships that you used to have, and that's your goal. And I think that the book means different things when you have different goals in mind that you set.
Awesome. Awesome. Wise, wise words. Thank you so much. Hey, thanks for being an awesome partner in this. And every time I talk
Of
to you, I
course.
always learn something new from you. So I really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, please subscribe to this channel, share Leave the Feed with a friend, and don't be afraid to disconnect. Thanks so much,
Like,
Dylan.
comment, and subscribe. Of course.